is up? Hopefully you guys are having a wonderful day. Back here with some Resident Evil 4 VR2. And today I'm going to give you my honest opinion on, do I believe Resident Evil 4 playing on the VR2, is it worth it? Is it worth going out there and getting a VR2 to play and enjoy this game? One thing I do want to specify right from the beginning is that I've always wanted to try the VR, even from the first VR or an Oculus or whatever. I've never played any type of virtual reality in my life. I mean, I was lucky enough to avoid the Virtual Boy back in the days of those Nintendo's days, but all joking aside, I've always wanted to do this, and I've always heard that Resident Evil was extremely fun, whether it's Resident Evil 7 on the VR, or Village on the VR2, and now Resident Evil 4 Remake on the VR2. So without further ado, hopefully I can give you guys an opinion that you guys can relate to and see if it is worth it. Now, one thing I will say, because I've never played it before, there is a little learning cap in terms of not just learning how to play, but getting used to it. And what I mean by getting used to it is getting used to having a thing on your head for an extended period amounts of times. Not in terms of discomfort where it might wear on your face, but just in terms of disorientation and as well as just wearing you out. This thing wore me out to a point where I was sometimes struggling just to get through a chapter when I first started because I was just so tired, exhausted. I just wanted the thing off my head. So it takes a little time to get used to, especially if you haven't had that thing on your head ever, if you've never done a VR period. So what I recommend early on, if you've never played on a VR, is, don't try to force it. Try to get used to it, and if you start feeling a little disoriented or tired, because I will admit I am lazy, even during the days where I was playing on like the Wii, I didn't want to be swinging all day with my arms and stuff, but if you are playing standing up, I definitely would recommend just take it slow, take it easy, don't try to overextend it. Eventually you will get used to it, where I was playing longer than I normally was. So I was getting to maybe 2, possibly 3 chapters. I never try to overdo it, is the point I'm trying to make here. So let your body get used to it. But in terms of playing it, it definitely felt fluid, enjoyable. Obviously, when you go to things like you're interacting with objects or items, or when you go to cutscenes, they do change from perspective. When you're putting keys in doors, you physically got to put the key in the door. If you do go from cutscenes, it does go back to the normal game cutscene, so it kind of takes you out of the immersion a little bit. You also do that when you do like combination attacks too. When you have an enemy that's you can stun or kick or whatever, it goes to the normal view, not the VR view. So it does have a little bit of immersion breaking there. It's not a big deal for me. I didn't personally care, but just some things to word. But I think my biggest problem I had, and it's a me problem, not trying to blame it on the game, is that obviously with the VR2, when you use your weapons, you obviously got to reload them like you would normally reload any weapon in real life. And some weapons are a lot harder to reload than others, especially in the heat of the moment. I think my biggest problem I had was some things like the bolt rifle, which it's fine when you're not under pressure, but when you're under pressure and you got a lot of enemies coming at you, it's hard to shoot, then reload, especially when you got so many people coming at you. And to me, that was the hardest part for me to learn. And it's not me knocking the game, I just suck at doing it. I'm just one of those lazy people that just want to shoot nonstop and then press a button to reload. But for certain things like the bolt rifle, that was the one that I could never really get used to. So for me personally, I had to do things that worked for me. Because when you do reload, you got to grab down the bottom, put the thing in, but then you got to do certain animations depending on the weapon. So I went with more easier things, like the Sentinel 9 and the Riot Shotgun, which I'll tell you right now, since they were 2 of my favorite weapons in the game, the fact that they're easy to reload, I didn't have a problem. But reliving one of my all-time favorite games, the remake version of it in the VR2, I will say this right now, it was a lot of fun to get up close and personal, because sometimes I feel like I had way too much fun with this game. It kind of gave me that, I don't know, Doom feeling sometimes where you feel like you just want to keep going and going. And with the Riot Shotgun, one of my favorites, it was a lot of fun to just get up close and personal and just blow everyone away. I mean, as I said, when you get a weapon you're really comfortable with in a VR, you just go to town on people. And here, I just had way too much fun for my own good. Remember, someone who played holy heck out of the Resident Evil 4 remake just the normal way, it was fun from a new perspective to do this as well. As I said, it's a little bit different. It takes a while to get used to, but I definitely had a good time. And Honestly, maybe a little bit too much fun for my own good, but it's definitely a lot of fun when you find a weapon, you get into a rhythm, and you just start going to town on people. It was always fun to experiment with different weapons, though. Obviously, it was cool to go around with a magnum, decapitating people in half, or whatever weapon you might use. And I think that was half the fun for me, is getting a different weapon and seeing, how it reloaded, if I could figure it out or not, how much fun it was to wield and use, and then having it all over your body and then picking it up. And as I said, sometimes when it worked out really well, it felt good, but sometimes, it doesn't always work out as well, because as I said, I'm not the most kinetically sound person in terms of doing things really fast via the VR and picking it off your shoulder, pulling it out, shooting people. So when it worked fine, it worked fine. But once again, I'm not dissing the game for this. It's more a me problem, because as I said, I'm not the best at doing that. It's cool to figure it out. And sometimes it would take me a little while to figure out how to do the reload. And sometimes I would just panic. I would just panic and not know what to do and just run. And we've all been there before. But replaying the games from this perspective, as I got later and later in the game, I really started to enjoy a lot of things. I think I'll never get good enough to the fact where I can play it as well as the normal way, but even so, I am happy to have this under my belt and finally see what all the fun of the VR, and I get it, and I get why people do like the VR. I do get why people prefer playing it and have a lot of fun on it as well. Another cool thing about the VR is that you can obviously mess with other things as well, not just your normal things. You can mess with the characters on the screen. Sorry, Luis, but you're the victim here today. But not that it really does anything, but I guess it's just there to be unique and weird. Some days I will notice, though, is that sometimes the lighting in this game, when you got the VR on, it would not always be great. You might have noticed this in some of the clips. Sometimes it seems really dark at times. I was trying to figure out ways to lighten up, so you might have to edit some things there. It didn't bother me too much, but to be fair, sometimes in the original game it got really dark too, non-VR. I mean, I know going in the castle, sometimes areas were really extremely dark, and I always had to change the settings there. So just something to warn you about there. I mean, okay, I'm sorry, Liz. I didn't mean to pick on you like that, but yeah, let's just pretend we just that happened. I was interested to see how the knife fight with Krauser would go, and honestly, it's okay. It really wasn't my cup of tea. It's just more, how many times can you slash your knife and hit him? Because there's really not too much, I guess, doing. I mean, it's fun to do the knife, I will admit, just to keep spamming it and stuff, but it's alright. Now, I'm not personally a fan of it, but I don't think it's bad. It's just it kind of feels weird, and I think that's my biggest thing here. But, yeah, overall, in terms of saying negatives, in terms of the experience, I think my biggest problem is just when you get turned around and stuff, and you're trying to turn and move and hold the weapons at the same time. It kind of gets a little hard to do all that at once, compared to like if you're playing the game normal way, you're already holding a weapon, but when you gotta run and turn, it's hard to hold the weapon in one hand, and then you're trying to turn around in the other hand, and you gotta reload with everything, and you got someone on your ass. It's hard to incorporate all those things at one time, but overall, it's not enough to hinder me. In terms of just playing this game, it's a lot of fun. I definitely will say that I'm happy to finally play it, experience Resident Evil in the VR2. But I know what you're thinking. Okay, well, do you recommend it? And the answer is a very easy, sound answer. No. Hell no. Do I recommend this? Now, you might be thinking, what? No, and a hell no at that. Why? You've been more positive than negative as of this whole review. Like, most of my negatives have only been things more personal towards me and me being lazy and stuff like that and not very good at it. But I'm not going to drag the game down for that. It's just a me problem. So why the hell no? Well, if you haven't already figured out, my problem with recommending it has nothing to do with the game itself. It's fun. It's great. I definitely recommend it as a game itself or to play it. But the big elephant in the room, I think, is very obvious. And obviously, to play this game, you have to have a VR2. Do I think it's worth spending money on a VR2 as well as having a PS5 in order to play this thing? Absolutely not. In fact, I still don't understand why this thing is so overpriced. And understand this, I got this on sale. I got this about $100 off, so I think I purchased this for about $500. And is it worth that? you know, on top of having the PS5 on top of it, no, it's definitely not worth that. I don't know why they can't figure out that, yeah, a lot of people aren't going to be buying this. And considering that I've been hearing that this thing might be possibly abandoned eventually or even discontinued, you know, rumors about that in terms of its sales and how much it's doing, it's not hard to see why. And it's not because it's not good technology or it's not fun to play and it isn't that there's fun games. It's just the price. That's what it comes down to. People don't want to pay that price. I mean, you're asking people a lot to spend, what, $1,000+ because you got to have the PS5 and you got to have this VR2 when, you know, you could find other VR things a lot cheaper, you know, on the market just to play something. I mean, this is a big ask, and honestly, I would only recommend this thing if you cut the price in half. I mean, this thing shouldn't have been like originally like $600, and you know now, and that sale is a temporary sale, by the way. So I don't know what it is now, but at $500-$600 range, no, it shouldn't be that high. Yes, it's a fun game, but not worth to pay all that money for. So while I had a fun time, I'm glad I finally got the VR experience under my belt. I can't recommend the game because of that. So hopefully I made that point perfectly clear. But as I always like to say, that is my opinion. I want to hear your guys' opinion. Have you ever played on any VR before? Have you played Resident 4 Remake on the VR? And if you're someone who thinks, oh, the price is just the problem, if it were to lower the price, would you give it a shot? And is that the biggest thing pushing you away? Let me know down in the comment section down below. But thank you very much for watching. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day, and I hope to see you all later. Peace.